better when you weren't necessarily as rigid. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, like the first 3 nights I was like, digital sunset, food, 3 hours before bed, all the things that we talked about. And for me, it didn't seem to, I didn't sleep well those 3 nights. But Thursday, I watched a movie before bed, probably ate a little later, but for some reason got great sleep. Maybe I just wasn't, overthinking it, or you know, maybe those first 3 nights I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna get great sleep. I'm hitting all these protocols.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that there's something to be said about that too, right? Where the the idea or maybe the expectations can even cause the brain to want to work in a different way when it comes to the sleep. However, that being said, it's interesting, and I know Christy, you're asking about the Aura ring, and I do have $50 off of that too, and I'll send that out to you guys. So the Aura ring, some nights I will think that I'm actually not getting as much sleep, or that it's not as high a quality, but then my Aura ring is going to tell me something different, where it's like you actually did get into better deep sleep. I might even wake up and feel a little bit groggy and be thinking in my mind, well, that didn't feel like it was good sleep. And then my Aura ring tells me it was, right? That my readiness level is higher, my heart rate ended up going lower. But it also could be because of trying to hit those expectations and thinking it's going to happen, and then just not thinking about so much the next night. I would encourage you not to give up on those things, but make them just more of, instead of it, the reason why we wanted to track is so that we can start to form those habits, right? Because without tracking, you're not going to form anything. You'll just revert back into the subconscious mind, which are just going to be the things that we would normally be doing. But if we're just continuously doing that and working on that, then I think that we're going to have start to form the habits to where we're not really even thinking about it. It just happens, right? And then we start getting into that, and that's important to slowly get into that. And again, I don't necessarily think that it's all going to happen in 1 week, but if we can follow the protocol, then slowly those things are going to start to work in, become just a part of your normal day, and you're going to start to see a change happening. But what we actually want to see, and I tell my nutrition clients this, as well as my health coaching clients, and as well as all you guys in the gym, that we don't want this drastic change to all of a sudden happen. We want incremental change, because what's happening when we have small incremental change over time and we build upon that is it becomes a foundation, and it's a lot harder to slide back, right? So think about it in this way. Let's use diet, because it's a very simple way of looking at this, or losing weight is even easier. If I told you that in 30 days I can get you to lose 30 pounds, and all I let you have is water and saltine crackers, you're going to lose 30 pounds, right? But does that mean that you're going to keep the 30 pounds off? Does that mean that you're going to be healthy? No. Now, if I tell you that I can get you to lose 30 pounds in a year, but also gain muscle while you're losing the 30 pounds and feel better and be more healthy, that's really where we want to go, right? Now, obviously, we always want a quick fix for some of this stuff, but it unfortunately doesn't happen that way. And we really wouldn't learn anything if it did. So that's kind of where we're at, the incremental changes. So what I would say to that then is, Laura, instead of worrying about doing all of those things, maybe just pick one and just do one of those things for the week until it becomes a habit. Maybe it takes 2 weeks, maybe it takes a month of just the one thing, right? And then once you got that down and you're feeling super solid with it, you can never imagine doing anything but what that is, then you could add in another one and do it that way. So that way it doesn't feel like there's as much expectation necessarily, but you're just doing the things that are good for you throughout the day, right? So
Sometimes,
those, yep, go ahead, Christy.
I'm sorry. No, sometimes that kind of helps isolate what actually does help and the things that don't as well.
You're absolutely right, Christy. It's hard to track what's working if you all of a sudden start doing 8 things, right? Now, of course, I gave you guys those things because I believe that all those things will help you. But maybe it's just the layering on one at a time and then building upon that. We could try that as well. Okay.
So Jeremy, there's one thing to factor into all of this that I find affects my sleep significantly is my cycle and kind of how that works. My hormones about a week before everything goes down are crazy. And I just hit patches of insomnia and then they go away like that. And it's, I've struggled, and I apologize, I wasn't on last week's session. There's just too much going on in the house, but I struggled with insomnia my entire life. And I do all of those very distinct things that you're recommending. And I do pretty well 3 weeks out of the month. And then 1 week is just usually it's just bad. So I think that's a special, the hormone piece of it is a part of it for me.
Yeah, I mean, that, and those hormones, I mean, honestly, that can be without even the cycle, that can be affecting someone too, right? So if we have hormone disruption or irregular hormones, that could be causing issues too, right? Now, that being said, what hormone is going to get us to go to sleep? We talked about it last week. It's the melatonin, right? So we're not doing ourselves any favor by doing anything that's going to suppress melatonin necessarily. Okay, so doing those actions are still going to help. But like you said, if there is a spike in hormones that is causing suppression of that melatonin because the body just can't do all of that work, then yeah, there's going to be, you're going to find some issues. Now, that being said, is that a reason to just assume that that's the way it's always going to be? Not necessarily, right? We could also look at that and say, well, maybe I do all of those things the right way, but maybe there's something else that is causing these hormones during that cycle to be so drastic, right? To change so much. Maybe there's other ways. And we're going to, again, talk about gene expression today. So this is kind of the foundation of what we're trying to do. And it will kind of lead us into some of those hormones and the changes and the reason why some of those hormones, especially in our world today, can be so drastically changed or suppressed just because of the outside noise. Okay, and we'll kind of jump into that a little bit today. Thank you, Laura, for sharing, and Wendy, thank you for that too. Obviously, I don't know what that's like, and I'm pretty steady across the board most of the month. So I tell Holly, though, that football season is like I built it up all year, and that 3 months is my season because the Browns are just terrible. So that's the way that works. All right, guys, before we jump into now going through just a couple other things and jump into our lecture and our discussion for today, I wanted to start today out with our actual breathes. So we practiced this last week, and we're just going to do 5 breaths. And your tempo, maybe you found what works better for you. For me, it's going to be 6 in through the nose, a second hold at the top, and then 8 out the nose. And I'm shooting for that 15 seconds. So you can keep your eyes open or close your eyes, whichever you like here, but we're going to do 5 breaths on your own. All right, now I'm ready to go through that. Oh, that felt good. I love that stuff. Isn't it amazing? Just some deep breaths, how that makes you feel. The whole time I was going through that, I was just thinking about the workout that we just did, which was awesome. Double unders and burpees today. So I got my 30 burpees in. That's like me. All right, guys, I'm going to go through, go ahead and mute you. And then we're going to go through and I'm going to do a screen share. I have a PowerPoint built to kind of go through this. And I don't want to take this and go through as if I'm coaching or teaching a class on genes. I'm going to kind of skim through what I think is more important. And you guys don't need to take notes on this if you don't feel the necessity necessarily for the scientific stuff. All I want is for everyone to get the concept of what we're trying to do. So the larger view concept, and I think understanding it at a deeper level is going to help us, understand how the genes work and why we're doing what we're going to do, and also influence us to stick to our protocol and doing these things. So let's see here, get into my screen share. All right, guys. So we're going to be talking about genes, and yes, you can reprogram your genes. I think that in our world today, a lot of people take the out of those are just my genes. So that's just the way. And actually, we're kind of programmed to be thinking that way. That these are my family genes. I was born with these genes, and thus I don't have any influence over them. And so we're going to kind of go through and talk a little bit about why that is not true, which is good news, because the things that we do each and every day, every moment of every day, can actually change those genes. So, and that's what we want to be doing. So yes, you can reprogram your genes. Just some quick facts is assorted genes throughout your body are constantly working, orchestrating the building of critical protein structures and enzyme pathways, and repairing, regenerating, and sometimes even destroying your cells based on the signals they get from their immediate environment. A complete set of Homo sapiens DNA is contained inside each of the 50 to 60 trillion cells in the body. Approximately 20,000 different genes are located on the DNA strands in each cell. So there's a lot of them. Genes can be viewed as an assortment of on-off switches for building the protein molecules that influence every element of the body function and structure. Genes can be viewed, gene switches turn on or off according to signals received from their environment. You can manipulate and optimize gene expression through foods, workouts, and lifestyle behaviors, which is what we've been working on for the past 21 days. Genes don't know or care whether these environmental signals promote or compromise your health. They simply react to each stimulus in an effort to promote your immediate survival. Familial genes determine fixed heritable traits such as eye, hair, and skin color, and even predispositions to obesity, heart disease, cancer, athletic performance, mathematical or musical aptitude, and so on. But remember, these are predispositions. Negative familial predispositions can be overcome by adhering to evolutionary-based lifestyle behaviors that promote optimal Homo sapiens gene expression. Gene expression happens through transcription and translation. DNA information flows to the RNA, which interacts with ribosome in the cytoplasm to make specific amino acids that comprise a protein. All right, so genes 101. Each of your 50 trillion to 60 trillion cells contain a complete set of Homo sapiens DNA instructions that are divided into subsets called genes. There are approximately 20,000 different genes located on the long strands of DNA in each cell. These DNA strands are further organized into 23 pairs of chromosomes. That's why you got 23andMe. Assorted genes throughout your body are constantly working, orchestrating the building of critical protein structures and enzyme pathways, and repairing, regenerating, and sometimes even destroying your cells based on the signals they get from their immediate environment. And we could think of things such as cancer for this. Conventional wisdom: genes are commonly viewed in a narrow dimension. The fixed heritable traits that we have little influence over, such as hair color, eye color, and predispositions towards certain personality characteristics or diseases. The influence of environment on day-to-day gene expression is underemphasized, as most people believe that the particulars of their familial genes are unalterable. It's important for us to understand that that's not the case. For example, a family history of heart disease or obesity will indeed predispose one to these conditions, but familial health problems that repeat over generations are highly influenced by a pattern of poor dietary and lifestyle habits. Alternating the environmental signals that you send your genes can render familial predispositions to health problems or excess body fat storage virtually irrelevant. So that's what we've been working on here, guys, is starting to express, or at least start to alter how our genes are expressing themselves. So even if we have something that is a predisposition, for example, a predisposition to, let's say, asthma, right? But if I have, and if I then have environmental factors such as leaky gut or another illness that then influences the asthma, then most likely I am going to have that, right? And that can be in the opposite way as well, where then people can not necessarily be affected by certain things that other people are being affected by, right? So it can go both ways on this as well. Familial genes. Coded into our familial genes are traits that environment has little to no influence over, such as eye, hair, and skin color, facial features, body shape, and even particulars such as flat feet or distinctive noses. We also have strong familial predispositions for obesity, heart disease, cancer, endurance athletic performance, sprint athletic performance, mathematical aptitude, and so on, as revealed by the incredible diversity among humans across the planet. Familial predispositions are likely to be eliminated or altered, but through lifestyle behavior in the survival of the fittest evolutionary model, this might require dozens of generations under the forces of environmental selection pressure. For humans, selection pressure essentially vanished with the advent of civilization, which eliminated the two main pressures humans faced for the previous couple million years: starvation and predatory danger. So again, we do have these, and when genes are passed down, those predispositions that are being passed down, they could come from your grandparents, your great-grandparents. For an example, on my grandfather's side, or my mom's father's side, they're all German and very tall, right? And we're like farmers, so I was built for that. So that would be my height, my hair color, all that would come into play there. However, other things such as on my dad's side, my grandfather smoked cigarettes, okay? So he was then exposed to lung cancer. Well, those lung cancer cells and that gene expression was passed through my father. And even though my dad did not smoke a day in his life, I am still susceptible to those same predispositions because it's not changing with him. All that's happening is whether the gene is turned on or turned off. So I'm still susceptible and have that predisposition to lung cancer. However, as long as I'm doing things to keep the gene turned off, I shouldn't have to worry about that happening. So that's kind of how that works there. Homo sapiens genes, we all share the identical genetic code that makes us Homo sapiens. The code has been molded by selection pressure to respond favorably to health-promoting lifestyle behaviors characterized by the 10 laws of the primal blueprint, which is what we've been working on. We all respond negatively to behaviors that are in conflict with the evolutionary model, such as chronic exercise, sugar consumption, and insufficient sleep. And this is really easy to see, right? If we look at an indigenous tribe that has had no interaction with civilization, they are all going to be in this incredible shape. And what's also crazy is their teeth are like perfect, right? Their teeth are not falling out, but that's because they're not exposed to sugar and everything else that is then going to cause those dispositions. Whereas we can see this especially in America now, and most civilized countries, is that we have one, chronic exercise, I think, is a big one, right? And I tell you guys, like, recovery days are super important, and this is exactly why, okay? And I've been there, where chronic exercise ended up being worse for me than it was better, right? My body started to break down, and when that happens, I have to listen to my body and start to let myself recover and take care of that. Sugar consumption is everywhere, and we see that through obesity, cancers, other things, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. And then also insufficient sleep, which is now being caused by all the artificial light and other things that we talked about last week. The degree to which you suffer or succeed in an assortment of areas depends on the particulars of your familial genes. Properly conducted sprint workouts promotes the release of adaptive hormones that enhance fat metabolism, help tone and build lean muscle tissue, and improve explosive speed in all humans. However, only a select few can develop the ability to run at 27 miles per hour, like the world record holder Bolt in the 100-meter dash. So again, while some people are going to excel in some areas, both health-wise, athletic-wise, we can also still promote the same thing that those elite athletes are promoting in their bodies by doing these actions. However, we may never hit that level, but we can still be promoting the same gene expression. Genes have no effect until they are expressed, and that's what we're talking about with the on and off switch, right? Is that while we are most certainly stuck with our eye and hair color from birth, and our adult height can be influenced only slightly through optimal lifestyle behaviors during our growing years, nearly all the gene expression that influences health and longevity can be manipulated and optimized through complementary lifestyle behaviors. Turn on good gene switches and you build muscle, increase fat burning, knock out invading viruses, or neutralize the oxidative damage to cells that characterizes the process of aging and decline. For an example, consuming omega-3 rich foods or supplements activates anti-inflammatory genes. Likewise, vitamin D obtained from optimal sun exposure activates the p53 gene, known as the spell checker gene, because it helps regulate healthy cell division and prevent cancer. In contrast, smoking deactivates a gene known as MTHFR, gene number 3, which, when this gene is not operating as desired, homocysteine levels in the blood become elevated, which increases the risk for many forms of cancer. So it's not even necessarily the smoke in the lungs, right? It's actually the act of smoking turning off a gene that is preventing cancer from happening. Okay, so again, it's all about the on and off switch, and that's what we are working for here. While each human has a complex makeup of genes that is entirely unique, it is important to understand that genes have no effect until they are expressed. For example, Usain Bolt, the fastest sprinter in history, could easily have realized a different destiny as a chicken nut guzzling overweight DJ had he never participated in athletics. Similarly, elite endurance athletes are identified by the genetic advantage of being able to process oxygen more efficiently during strenuous exercise. This measurement, known as VO2 max, has been shown to have minimal trainability. That is, you cannot improve your quotient very much even through diligent training. So something to remember there. When we see, so a good example, right? Josh and Paul at the gym, okay? And their ability to run 150 miles. I'm sorry, my body's not going to be able to do that. And yet they do it and they actually enjoy it, okay? And this is, again, an expression of a gene that they are carrying, okay? Now, does that mean that we shouldn't be training to necessarily run long distances? Maybe not that long, but we should still be training to turn on the gene to help express our version of what that is, okay? All right, so what does this mean for long-term health? The mission of your genes is to promote short-term survival through homeostasis. So we, again, think about evolution. Our genes are turning on and off to help us survive. The synchronistic functioning of all systems in the body. So that's your homeostasis. Genes don't know or care whether the signals you give them promote or compromise long-term health. They are just reacting to those. They simply operate as they have been designed to do by evolution, molded by the precise behaviors of our ancestors. So it's important to understand they don't care. They're not looking at it as saying it's good or it's bad, okay? The development of type 2 diabetes, the exhaustion of the insulin producing mechanism in the body to extent that insulin injections become necessary to regulate blood sugar, is actually an example of the body doing what it is supposed to do over and over again until it finally becomes exhausted. Excess glucose in the bloodstream is toxic and become life-threatening in a short time. So pumping out insulin after the consumption of thousands of sodas, cereal bowls, and energy bars over decades is the body's violent and desirable effort to ensure short-term survival, right? So if the insulin didn't work, and that's why type 2 diabetes is scary and they have to then pump in insulin, is because if they're eating those sweets and the insulin's not there to get rid of that toxicity in the body, they're going to become ill and die. So the body's just doing its job. However, this overuse of that insulin is what's causing the type 2 diabetes, right? So again, a good example there of how this is going to be affecting us. So just remember, genes are short term. They're looking at the short term. However, we want to be thinking about the long term. Gene reprogramming. So we have a blueprint for a healthy living embedded in our Homo sapiens genetic code, the DNA that resides in every cell of our bodies. The blueprint was created through the magnificent process of human evolution. Our genes expect healthy foods, frequent movement, regular, brief, intense strength, and sprint efforts, adequate sun exposure, sleep and leisure time, and so forth. When our genes are exposed to these environmental inputs, good food, good workouts, etc., they respond with health-promoting gene expression. Modern lifestyle behaviors and the environmental circumstances that conflict with our primal blueprint cause the mismanagement of genes and a consequent decline in general health, vitality, and longevity. Okay, so that just sums up what's going on and why those outside pressures are causing these issues. So what's interesting also is that gene expression happens instantly in response to eating a certain meal, conducting a certain workout, or even, according to some scientists, thinking a certain positive or negative thought, like we just expressed through our breathing technique. What happened immediately after we got done with our breathing technique? Stress levels or anxiety probably lowered down, which then allowed for other genes to be expressed, right? And this goes into same idea with hormones as well, is that we're looking at allowing the good hormones to express themselves. Always genes respond to environmental stimulus by promoting short-term survival. A hostile thought might elicit the fight or flight response, as your body is tricked into thinking that a benign emotional stressor, your boss snapping at you in the office, is physically life-threatening. Similarly, ingestion of a large amount of carbohydrate will promote the release of insulin into the bloodstream to help quickly store the excess calories that are not burned for future use. to promote long-term health, a pattern of primal living that promotes optimal gene expression over both the short term and the long term must be followed for approximately 21 days, which we did. I actually think it's more like 45 to solidify the process of gene reprogramming. So just like we were talking about, we worked on our sleep for a week, right? But how long is it actually going to take for those genes to start changing for us so that our sleep becomes more optimized through the behaviors that we're doing throughout the day? It doesn't take just a week. We may see some changes, but in reality, it's going to take 45 days or more, right? It's not about making it all happen at once like Laura was doing there, but instead thinking about the long term and just keeping with it day after day. And that's when we're going to see the actual progress happen. And that's going to be the same, guys, with all of these, and just making the operationalizing our ability to hit these factors. That's what we're really looking for. All right, so transcription and translation. Gene expression inside your cells happens through a complex process known as transcription and translation. First, during transcription, information stored in a cell's DNA flows to the RNA, both of which are located in the cell's nucleus. When RNA contains the information for making a specific type of protein, it is called messenger RNA. Messenger RNA carries its information out of the nucleus and into the cytoplasm in preparation for the next step. In the cytoplasm, messenger RNA interacts with ribosome, the protein-making machinery in your cells. Ribosome translates the information contained in the messenger RNA to make specific amino acids that comprise a protein. Another type of RNA, known as transfer RNA, methodologically assembles the protein molecule one amino acid at a time, as directed by messenger agents known as codons. The flow of information from DNA to RNA, a protein, is one of the fundamental principles of science and is therefore commonly called the central dogma of molecular biology. All right, so this is when did we learn this stuff? Back in like 6th grade, I think, or something, 6th, 7th grade, right, in science class. So, but just to give you guys an idea of how this is working, and this is not what's important here to take away from this. What's important is understanding that each one of those processes are going to happen, and through our environmental factors, those processes are then going to be manipulated. So then let's jump into systemic inflammation. And if you guys haven't already heard somewhere else that most doctors and scientists are now saying that inflammation is either associated or the cause of pretty much every chronic disease that we have, okay? It's this systemic inflammation, this constant inflammation. Systemic inflammation or chronic inflammation caused by long-term adverse lifestyle practices such as eating a high carbohydrate diet can result in undesirable gene expression and mutation. Inflammation is the body's natural response to harmful environmental stimulus. So this is just like the genes, right? So inflammation is kind of doing the same thing. It's thinking, well, in the short term, I need to do this to help protect the body from infection. So if I'm eating a lot of sugar, then that's the body's natural way of starting to defend itself. However, when it becomes chronic and we do not have the opportunity to then flush that out, that's when it becomes a problem. The immune system's inflammatory response is a critical component of health and homeostasis. However, this inflammatory response, like the fight or flight response, is designed to respond to acute stimuli, not chronic stressors. For example, when we sustain a bee sting, take an elbow to the face in a basketball game, or turn an ankle on a hiking trail, the inflammatory response of tissue swelling in the injured area helps your body quarantine the damage from the trauma to the affected areas. Without the acute inflammatory response, toxins from the traumatized area might run wild through the bloodstream and create a system-wide disturbance. Over the ensuing days, the inflammatory response helps these injuries heal by increasing blood flow to the affected areas, accelerating the removal of toxins, and repairing or regenerating damaged cells. Okay? When inflammatory promoting environmental stimulus is chronic instead of acute, or occurs throughout the body instead of staying confined to the area of an acute injury, the inflammatory response becomes harmful. This is commonly described as chronic inflammation or systemic, system-wide inflammation. For example, a high insulin producing diet has a pro-inflammatory effect on the body. Consuming an excess of pro-inflammatory omega-6 fatty acids and insufficient amounts of anti-inflammatory omega-3 fatty acids also promotes systemic inflammation. The condition of systemic inflammation results in excessive fluid retention in the cells. This can be reflected in bloating and puffy skin. So we know that if we had a night out, right, we stayed up late, we drank too much alcohol, what happens the next day? We're all kind of puffy, joints probably hurt a little bit, and that's exactly what's happening here. Consequently, when dietary changes are made to achieve a better inflammatory balance, many experience less cellular fluid retention. This results in significant weight loss and noticeable changes in appearance in the initial weeks of diet modification. So this is exactly when we talk about even going through this 21 days, if we followed the diet to a T and we were not having any foods that were causing inflammation, we most likely, without actually losing body fat mass, we likely felt and looked more toned, right? And we can see this, and I see it in myself all the time, where if I give myself a break from some of the things that might be causing inflammation and I just eat super clean for even a week, it looks like I'm thinner. It looks like I lost weight. However, I didn't, right? I just got rid of the inflammation. So the body, the muscle actually shows itself. And so that's what we're doing. But it's important to understand that it's not just an aesthetic that we're looking at. There is internal inflammation going on in the body when we have this chronic inflammation that is causing issues in the tissue of organs as well. And so we want to be careful with that. Genes that impact health and longevity can be altered by lifestyle behaviors following the model of our hunter-gatherer ancestors. This counters the conventional wisdom view that genes are mostly fixed heritable traits that you have little influence over. Familial genes result in the tremendous diversity of the human race, such as the example of athletic dominance by specific ancestry. Furthermore, familial predispositions to health problems are relevant when lifestyle behaviors are contrary to optimal gene expression. However, optimizing the expression of Homo sapiens genes can render familial predispositions to distant or disease irrelevant. Genes have no effect until they are expressed, and that's the most important thing that we need to take away from this. Genes are programmed to support short-term survival through homeostasis. Striving for long-term health requires an understanding of optimal gene expression based on the ancestral example and of how to reprogram genes through healthy lifestyle changes. Gene expression happens through a process of transcription and translation, the central dogma of molecular biology. During transcription, information in the cell's DNA flows through the RNA inside the nucleus. Messenger RNA carries the information into the cytoplasm and interacts with the ribosome. Ribosome makes specific amino acids, and transfer RNA assembles the specific protein molecule, one amino acid at a time, directed by messenger agents called codons. Systemic inflammation occurs when the body is chronically stressed by adverse lifestyle practices such as high carbohydrate eating patterns, chronic exercise patterns, or insufficient sleep. Unlike acute inflammation, which is a critical element of optimal immune function, systemic inflammation sets the stage for an assortment of health conditions and serious diseases. So that's just kind of the overview there, what we talked about. All right, So the big takeaway through all this, guys, is that I want you to be thinking about each decision, and including the small ones throughout the day, ultimately are helping guide gene expression. Okay. So even taking that, I told you about my 1,000-second timer, even taking that 1,000-second timer, getting up out of my chair, stretching, getting some blood flow going, right? Or doing a couple burpees over the period of the day is going to help express my genes in a different way, right? Compared to just going into the gym and just hitting 1 hour once a day. Okay. And now let's go to the other side of the spectrum. If I work out all day and I'm not getting any rest, I'm causing this systemic inflammation, this chronic inflammation, which again then is then altering my gene expression as well. Okay, so we want to be looking at what are the things that we can do throughout the day to help optimize genes. And now, this is the tricky part, because we still have to live within our society. So I joke around with people all the time about, if I was going to make a fully healthy society, if I was going to take and I could wave a wand and I make everyone healthy in the whole wide world and everything was good, what would that look like? And I would say that we would need to take about 5 to 6 generations step back. Okay, not necessarily to the point of our full ancestors where we were just hunters and gatherers, but I would say that we would be living and working on a farm, something like that, right? We would be hunting some of our own food. Sometimes we would go hungry because we wouldn't have all the food just at our fingertips. Sugar would not be around at all, right? We'd get it once in a great while, as like a treat, right? Those are the things that that is how our world would look. So now, how do we do that within our society now? And it's going to be these small changes that we're making while still being able to live in our society. So good example, when you're on your phone calls like right now, and I see 2 of you are sitting outside, you are doing part of that, right? If we can make that one choice of, well, I could sit inside and do this phone call, or I could go outside in the sun for that 5-minute phone call, I'm making that decision. Okay, I'm changing that slightly, right? So how do we operationalize these algorithms? Okay, and that's the way that we're going to be looking at this. There are all these different things that we do throughout the day, and this is going to be our homework for this week. So most of what we do, I would say a good 95% of what we do is going to be subconscious, or we do subconsciously. So the way that our facial expressions, what I do with my hands when I talk, okay, I'm not actively thinking about what I'm doing. This is just, it's something that I have learned over time, and now it has become a piece of it, right? So this is my subconscious working. Okay, now knowing that, how can I change those things, right? Because that 5% of consciousness or mindfulness has to change 95% of what I do every day. How do we even get started? And that's where we're going to use algorithms, okay? The algorithm is if, then, okay? If I wake up in the morning, then I do 5 burpees, right? If I drive my car, then I listen to a podcast that I like, okay? If I wash dishes, then I do my breathing technique, okay? Now we could do the opposite of this, right? If, let's take one, and I'm gonna use one of my own. If I'm highly stressed, then I want to drink a beer. It's not a good one, right? This is not optimal gene expression, but it is an algorithm, okay? I find comfort in consuming alcohol when I'm stressed because that's something that I was brought up on, okay? Christy, do you have a question? Yeah? Go ahead.
So with the algorithm, are we supposed to start looking at the things that we are currently doing and what, the if and then, or are we trying to shape what we want to do?
Yeah, it's a great question. So what we're going to do so that we don't get too overwhelmed with all of this is I want you guys to try to put together 100 algorithms. 100 of your algorithms. So it's going to be a list, and it's going to say Rachel's algorithms, okay? And then underneath, number 1, if I do this, then I do this, okay? If I do this, then this. If then. And it doesn't have to be, 100 sounds like a lot, but let's be real here, okay? How many actions do you think that you take throughout the day without even thinking about it? There's millions of things that happen throughout the day that you are actively doing, but you're not thinking about it at all. All we want to do is bring all of those actions, or a lot of them, to the frontal cortex, so that way we can review them and say, is this one that I actually want to do? Or would I rather change this, right? Is this expressing the way that I want to express myself? Or is this one that I need to change? And then if that's the case, what would be the algorithm that I would change? And we're not going to go quite there yet. All I want you guys to do, this is your homework. So now you can write down this. So actions for this week are going to be 100 algorithms, if then, okay? And these are your guys' algorithms, 100 algorithms. And then once you have the 100 algorithms, and you can ask your significant other, partners, kids, ask them what your algorithms are, because they probably see it more than you do, right? Okay, if mommy doesn't eat by 9 o'clock, mommy's mean, okay, right? Like there's algorithms there too that they're gonna see. And then I want you to circle 3 that you would like to change. Okay, what are the 3 biggest that really stand out? Highlight them, circle them, underline them, and say, man, if I could change these 3, these would change, my whole day would change. Okay, maybe this is a sleep habit thing. Maybe this is an exercise habit. Maybe it's an eating habit. Maybe it's a stress habit, right? Something that we do there. And then I want you to circle 3 that you're like, oh, hell yeah, that's like me. Those are 3 that I didn't even realize that I do, but those are awesome. And circle those, and those are going to be our optimizing ones. So, okay, why do those work, right? The 3 that we look at and we're like, man, that's like me. Okay, well, why do those work? What happened that led to us having those algorithms? And then we can take and we can optimize those, and then we can also use the protocol to then start to change and optimize other ones as well. Okay, and this can be done with anything. As you're doing this, what I want you to imagine, your subconscious is your supercomputer. Okay, it is more intelligent than you will ever be. I'm sorry that you're hearing that. It's still you, don't worry. Okay, your subconscious is still you. But it is more intelligent than we will ever be in the frontal cortex. Okay, it literally drives our day to day. All right, but that supercomputer can be reprogrammed by the little guy, the little pilot, okay? Most of the time, we are on autopilot, and we potentially are doing things that we don't want to do, okay? What we want to do is now change the autopilot settings so that we are automatically doing the things that we want to do. And that's where the algorithms come in, okay? We're gonna work the algorithm protocol. We're going to find those things. We're going to optimize 3 really good ones that we like. We're going to change 3 other ones. So your homework for this week is just exploring those, okay? Finding your 100, and then we'll get to work on those next week, okay? And that's what our session will be for next week, is just talking about, okay, sharing some of those that we feel comfortable sharing, and then talking about how we might be able to change those and getting everyone else's input on those. Because most likely, we're all going to have similar ones, right, that we would rather change, okay? And so we can work together as a group to start to change those. Does anyone have an algorithm already in mind? Does anyone want to share one? Huh? Joy? Hold on, Joy. Let me unmute you. Or you need to unmute yourself, Joy.
Okay. Well, I already wrote down a few of them. I liked your dishes one where you do 5 breaths when you do some dishes.
Yeah.
But so I know this is like amnesty hour here. I know we've been supposed to be eating super well, but I struggle a lot. So
Sure.
I put, if I eat treats, then I feel guilty or bad, like physically. And then if I eat healthy, then I feel great.
God, I love it. That's a perfect example of an algorithm, because what she did there, right? There are 2 algorithms around a similar concept.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And understanding that if I eat something that I'm not proud of or something that's going to make me feel ill, this is the way that I feel. Whereas if I eat something that does make me feel good, this is the way I feel. And then you can start to even branch off of that. If I feel good, then what happens? How do I treat my family? Right? So then they all connect back to, well, okay, if I eat good, then my kids like me more. Right? Like it all kind of filters back in. And again, it's just this, but at each one of those little spots, we can make changes to either operationalize upward or the opposite of what we don't want to do, which is starting to go down. Right? Beautiful, Joy. I love that example. James, did you have one? No, not yet. Okay. Anybody else want to share one? No? All right. That's all right. You guys will get to share next week. All right, guys. So that's the homework for today. Does anyone have any questions for me on this session, or overall need some coaching? Joy.
Just kind of a general question. So is this a 21-day thing, like end on Monday, or are you just going to kind of continue going until?
It's a good question, Joy. I like it. I'm going to keep going until we change your life. How about that? So I had the emails will continue for 22 days. The constant emails where we're kind of just slowly working different things in and giving you guys some things to challenge you. However, these coaching sessions are going to continue once a week until we get to the end, which I have a ton of stuff that we can continue to work on. Okay. And right now, just so you guys know, so we are working our health coaching, but I'm starting to pull in some of the life coaching stuff from Optimize as well. So algorithms, that's actually part of our Optimize program, which we will be doing as well here coming up soon. James has already been working on it, and he knows just how awesome it is. I'm super pumped to get to work on that one. I'm just still working with the Optimize group to figure out how exactly we're going to do it. But again, it all kind of feeds in, right? And I think the hardest part to we all know what we want to feel and look like and be like, right? There's this person that's up here that is like this amazing version of ourselves, and we want to be that, but there are all these things that we don't quite understand about ourselves that is preventing us from being that person. And it's not our fault, right? This is stuff that we have either used as protection over time, or experienced or learned from our parents, or whatever it might be. It's a part of us as well, right? And it's not something that we should look at and be like, that's bad, Jeremy. But instead, understanding that side of Jeremy, and then saying, okay, well, I understand that you need that for these things, but what about if we do this differently here? And then slowly we can start to move ourselves, optimize ourselves into our highest version of ourselves. And here's the best part about all of this: we will never get there. And James knows this, right? Brian says it all the time. You are never exonerated. We will always be working on becoming our best selves, because once we get there, guess what? There's this version of ourselves up here, and we're constantly working towards that new and better version. And that's what makes it so much fun. Okay. So there's no wrong. It's just understanding. That's what we're doing. So we have 100 algorithms. Circle 3 good, circle 3 that we want to change, and then we'll work on those next week. Does anyone have any other questions for me? No, we're good? Okay, you guys are beautiful and awesome. I love you all, and I'll see you next week.
Bye, guys.
Thank
Have a happy
Thank you.
Easter.
Have a good
Happy
Sunday.
Easter.
Bye.
Sunday weekend, whatever. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.